In 1945, World War II ended. The guns went silent, the bombs stopped falling, and the world began to heal. But deep inside a dense jungle on a small island in the Philippines, one man refused to believe it was over. For 3 decades, 30 long years, he fought a war that no longer existed. This is the haunting true story of Hiroo Onoda, the soldier who never surrendered. It was December 1944. Japan was losing the war. American forces were advancing across the Pacific, and chaos reigned in every military outpost. Second Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda, only 22 years old, received his final order from his superior officer. You are to stay behind on Lubang Island, conduct guerrilla warfare, destroy enemy supplies, never surrender, and never, ever, take your own life. That was the last command Onoda ever received from the Empire of Japan. And for him, that command was sacred. When Japan officially surrendered in August 1945, the world moved on. But Onoda and a few of his comrades, hidden deep in the Philippine jungle, didn't believe it. They thought the surrender was a trick, clever propaganda to lure them out. And so, they stayed. The jungle became their battlefield and their prison. They hunted wild animals, raided local farms for food, and avoided capture at all costs. At night, they'd sit under the moonlight, whispering to each other about the real Japan, the one they imagined still fighting somewhere out there. They found leaflets saying the war had ended, but they thought they were fake. One leaflet read, "The war ended on August 15, 1945. Please come down from the mountains." Onoda's reply? Fake. The enemy is testing our loyalty. Even when planes dropped letters from his own family begging him to return, he believed they were forged. To Onoda, surrender was dishonor. And loyalty, even blind loyalty, was everything. Years passed. The small group of Japanese holdouts began to shrink. One by one, they were captured, killed, or gave up hope. By 1950, only 4 men remained. Then 3. Then 2. In 1959, the Philippine government declared Hiroo Onoda dead. But he was very much alive, a ghost soldier haunting the jungle. He lived off bananas, coconuts, and stolen rice. He repaired his uniform again and again, sewing it with vines and bark. His rifle, though rusted and worn, was always cleaned, always ready. Imagine this. You wake up every morning, surrounded by birds, rain, and silence, believing the world is still at war. For 30 years, the loneliness began to eat at him. Every sound of a branch snapping, every echo in the forest, felt like an ambush waiting to happen. But Onoda stayed sharp, patrolling, hiding, surviving, his sense of duty stronger than fear itself. Then, in 1974, nearly 3 decades after Japan's surrender, a young Japanese traveler named Norio Suzuki arrived on Lubang Island. He wasn't a soldier, he was an explorer. And he had a strange mission. He told his friends, "I'm going to look for 3 things: Lieutenant Onoda, a panda, and the abominable snowman." Most people laughed. But Suzuki was serious. And incredibly, he found him. After days of trekking through the jungle, he came face to face with a thin, weathered man, dressed in a tattered uniform, clutching an old rifle. Hiroo Onoda stepped out from the shadows, still ready to fight. When Suzuki told him the war had ended 29 years ago, Onoda refused to believe it. "I will not surrender," he said, "unless my commanding officer orders me to." Suzuki was stunned. He took photographs, spoke kindly, and promised to return with Onoda's commander. And then he left. Back in Japan, Suzuki's discovery made headlines around the world. The government located Onoda's former commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, who was now a quiet bookseller living in Japan. They flew him to Lubang Island. On March 9, 1974, the old officer walked into the jungle, and for the first time in 30 years, Hiroo Onoda stood at attention and saluted. Taniguchi spoke softly. "Lieutenant Onoda, the war is over. You are relieved of duty." For a long moment, Onoda didn't move. Then slowly he lowered his rifle. After 30 years, the war inside him finally ended. He took off his cap and wept. Onoda then handed over his rifle, ammunition, and grenades, all still in working condition. He had kept them spotless, believing that one day, Japan would call him back to fight again. That day never came, but his loyalty, though misplaced, never wavered. When Onoda returned to Japan, he was welcomed like a national hero, yet some called him a symbol of delusion. The world he came back to was unrecognizable. Cars filled the streets. Neon lights covered Tokyo. Children played with toys made in America. He once said, "I felt I had returned to a foreign country. The Japan I had fought for no longer existed." In the Philippines, he was officially pardoned by President Ferdinand Marcos, despite having killed local farmers during his years in hiding. Onoda publicly apologized and expressed regret, but said he had only followed orders. Some admired him for his discipline. Others pitied him for his blind obedience. Either way, Hiroo Onoda became a living legend, a man caught between two worlds, the war that ended and the peace he could never fully understand. After his return, Onoda moved to Brazil. He ran a cattle farm, quiet, simple, surrounded by open land. He said it reminded him of freedom and peace. But deep down, the jungle never left him. He missed the sound of rain on the leaves, the discipline, the solitude. Years later, he returned to Japan and started a survival training school for young people, to teach them endurance, courage, and loyalty. But this time, he also taught them compassion, something he had learned too late. In one interview, he said, "I learned that a man should never give up, but he should also know when to stop fighting." Hiroo Onoda died in 2014, at the age of 91. But his story still echoes through history, a haunting reminder of how far human conviction can go. Sometimes, loyalty becomes isolation, and courage becomes tragedy. For 30 years, Hiroo Onoda fought a war that had long ended. He lived for duty, and almost died for it. But maybe the real war was never out there. Maybe it was the one inside his own heart.